To the left, we have the Samsung S95D. To the right, we have the Samsung Q8FN. Both are 55 inches, and I'm just going to get straight to the point. The Samsung S95D does ultimately win. However, the Q8FN does hold its own in a way I did not expect. So that's what we're going to be talking about. Got to the point in less than 30 seconds, so smack like on the video for not wasting your time. Alright, so let's talk about it. To the left, you can see the Samsung S95D struggling with the color cyan. This is something that the quantum dots wrapped in metal in 2018 did way better. It just reproduced color in a way that we don't have anymore. This is where I tell everybody, like, hey, the Samsungs of today are overly cool, overly cold, very blue. They don't look as pure or as true to life with ambient light as they should look, and you're seeing that going up against what is a 6-year-old television now. Now, I will say that the overall ABL, if you will, has gotten a lot better with OLEDs over time. So as you can clearly see against the Q8FN obviously is brighter, but the ABL isn't as aggressive as something that's mostly a full screen of the color white. And typically you'd see an aggressive dimming down. Don't get me wrong, you still have dimming, but it's not as aggressive as what we have here to the right on the Q8FN. And instead you're able to see, again, almost comparable brightness, which is really good. Now, for those that remember that video where I had a window open and I'm showing you guys the haze when light is hitting the matte finish screen, you probably remember this scene here from Spider-Man 2. And again, going back to cyan reproduction, you can see it clearly here. The Q8FN is slaughtering the S95D in terms of that reproduction. We're gonna go ahead and hit play here, and you're gonna be able to see more of what I'm talking about. As Venom runs out, you can just see like that ambient of cyan looks way better. However, the overall peak highlights draw your eye immediately on the Samsung S95D. It's to the point where it's like, it's such a benefit. You're starting to see the age of the Q8FN a lot more in those examples. However, if I'm being honest, I wish there was like almost like a love child in between the two of these TVs, where I have the brightness of the Samsung S95D and the cyan reproduction of the Samsung Q8FN. Now, for full disclosure, for those that don't know, back in 2018, we had a feature called HDR+. HDR+ gave us total control over the television. I mean, I'm talking access to BT 2020, DCI-P3. I could select whether I wanted HLG, BT 1886, or ST 2084 for the gamma curve. You had tons of freedom and control to really make the TV whatever you wanted based on your preferences. That is something that we have lost, and I am so sour to have lost that, because I feel like this TV to the left with the Samsung S95D would have gotten a little bit farther had we would have had the full control. So maybe something they can add back, maybe with software or firmware down the line. Probably not, but it is still something to mention as, again, we're comparing these two TVs. So when you're on things like Crunchyroll, you can notice this is where you're going to see the biggest difference between these two TVs. And if I'm being totally transparent, in all honesty, for anime, I prefer the look of the Samsung Q8FN, believe it or not, because if you look at just the color like cyan throw, the ambient light casting around this entire scene is just far more accurate. The hair, far more accurate. You have more realistic color, where here, they just slap it with one dark shade of blue and call it a day. That is not accurate or correct, and if you go to multiple examples, you'll see exactly what I'm talking about. Look at the shade of hair. The color green here, you can see far more realistically, a lot more detail. These are the kinds of things that add up as you start to watch different examples. Jujutsu Kaisen, for example. I know you probably can't see it on camera, but the richness in the purple up here, especially here, you can see every little nuanced shade, where again, that extra kick in the realism behind the cyan looks good versus over here, where it just looks blue. You end up losing so much when you go to the S95D in terms of color purity and color accuracy that it almost feels like there's no point. In this example of the One Piece, again, TV show here, you can see, again, all the colors are separated appropriately. However, you do notice the extra highlight kickoff of the building, and that's ultimately where the S95D has that extra kick and that extra wow factor. Really speaking a testament into how TVs were built back in 2018, and that here we are in 2024, and the Samsung Q8FN is still not only viable, but looking damn good as it does it. So this example is probably one of the more impressive ones for, again, a 6-year-old TV, and that the Q8 Q8FN to the right is starting to look a lot more like a superstar. If you look around the sun here, you can see a lot of the tightness, the rays of light shining off of that sun right there, right behind the S in Spider-Man. Additionally, if you look at the water in the bottom left-hand corner, you can notice that strong highlight pop that you just don't have to the same level as you do on the Samsung S95D to the left. You do have better color, though, to the left on the Samsung S95D, so they do trade back and forth, where here the color overall is just kind of hazy and it doesn't really look as nice. Again, that is because this is a full array local dimming TV with only 40 zones of local dimming control, which again in 2024 is totally showing its age. So again, not every example will it end up winning, but again, I still think it's impressive nonetheless. In this example, you'll probably be surprised with how good the Samsung Q8FN to the right is holding its own as far as colors and contrast specifically. We always hear the claim that OLED has infinite levels of contrast, and that's total BS, because we know OLED contrast is about 400,000 to 1 on the contrast ratio. But again, when we look at something like the Samsung, again, Q8FN, you're able to see a lot of that clarity and detail. They look honestly about the same, with the biggest difference being the highlight detail that we have on the Samsung S95D. Now don't get me wrong, the S95D pulls ahead in colors like yellow. I'm noticing a lot more accuracy behind that. And again, there's something special about the way that highlights fly off the S95D. I'm sorry, but the Q8FN is just not able to do that, and it again is showing its age. For that reason alone, you'd want to upgrade to the S95D over something like the Q8FN because of that like highlight control. And when you really see it on things like those tiny light sources like tail lights, headlights, street lamps, things reflecting off of beams or buildings or walls in the background, all those little lights add up to a really immersive experience that, again, the Q8FN just cannot do, because again, A, it's not OLED, and B, it doesn't have that level of granular control, even like a mini LED would have in 2024. But either way, you're getting to see what I'm talking about as far as these differences. Okay, so when we look at actual moving examples, you can clearly see the S95D has better color, better contrast, better clarity. It looks incredible. But again, if we look at the Q8FN, it's still holding its own pretty darn well. I think colors are very similar in a lot of these examples to where it's rich. Contrast particularly, again, going up against an OLED, like in this example right here, right? We'll go back a frame or so. And again, I'll give you guys the name of the demo so you can replicate this yourself. Okay, but if we go right here to where the leaves are showing themselves, again, this is the Samsung Display 4K QD OLED demo. Okay, if we look at this example, look at the details on the Q8FN. It's so sharp and so clear. You can see everything that you should see. And again, you can see it on the S95D, and it has way better color by far, in my personal opinion, and the highlights are better on the S95D, allowing you to see things like that diamond way better. Where over here on the Samsung Q8FN, if you guys remember how the local dimming algorithm worked back then, it basically dimmed down things so that it didn't get too bright when it started noticing that there could be bloom. So that was one of the ways that the 40 zones of local dimming gave us ultra deep black levels. And here we see it, 2024 competing against a QD OLED, still doing a damn good job. Even though it's not winning or beating it, it's still doing great. I mean, because again, the color now is just way better on the S95D. And again, the Q8FN is definitely showing its age. But all in all, I'm just blown away by how good the Q8FN is holding up. But again, we already know the winner is the S95D, but I don't think anybody was prepared to acknowledge just how close something like the S95D or the Q8FN got to the S95D. And it kind of boils down into this. No matter what you've been told or what you see, everything is not always as it appears. There's always a way for something to compete in this market especially, and that's something to think about. Now, this demo was around back with the Q8FN, and in fact is the demo for the Samsung FN line of televisions, particularly the Q8FN and the Q9FN. And you're going to be able to see all the colors look similar to the right, but not anywhere near as vibrant and as good as what we have on the S95D. And this is where we're starting to see the S95D's benefit, right? Yes, it's not as good as some of the 2024 options. And again, as I say options, I'm really talking about the QD OLED lines, particularly the S90D. However, that does not mean that if you own a TV like the Q8FN, right, that this can't compete. It does have moments where it's weaker, like now. Like if I pause here, right, we look at the train tracks, okay? And you can clearly see, as we look at the train tracks and this damn demo not wanting to pause for whatever weird reason, well, you can get an idea. You can see that the brown is just a little bit richer and a little deeper, and you have some extra contrast here and there, but then luminosity kicks in on the S95D, and now colors look way, way better here. This is immaculate, right? It's something that the S95, or rather the Q8FN to the right is struggling with. Also, naming structures are vastly different between the two, so if I ever mix one of them up, you're just going to have to roll with it because you guys know how it is. But I mean, looking at the dirt, looking at everything, it just looks so good on both TVs. I'm not going to lie. And this is kind of where it boils down to a $1 million question. If I have the Samsung Q8FN, do I really need to pay extra money to step up to the S95D? Do you need to? The answer is no, you don't need to. It's not really a requirement. You can get exceptional picture quality off of the Samsung Q8FN. And honestly speaking, way more than what a lot of the 2024 TVs at a mid-range will offer. You'll have access to BT 2020 and all that good stuff in a way where you're having that tight HDR mapping, because this is a TV made to last, right? It was made to compete. It was made with future proofing in mind, where new TVs aren't made for that. New TVs are made to be replaced, right? And so with that as the case, we have technologies that just no longer exist that they ripped out of the TVs with no interest to put back in. And you can see how those technologies help TVs from 6 years ago still hold their own against flagship models, the cream of the crop, and 2024. I mean, just look at the Samsung Q8FN and you're seeing it go toe to toe. I am impressed with it, but ultimately, yes, the winner is the Samsung S95D, but I will say I still love both these TVs, and I think if you have a Q8FN, look at the gold right now. It's incredible either way. So that being said, the winner again, verdict goes for the Samsung S95D, but again, if you have a Q8FN, hold your head high because you have a King of Kings, still relevant in 2024, still able to kick ass and take names in 2024, and you do not need to upgrade if you don't want to, because it has an extraordinary picture quality still to this very day. Until the next video, I'll see you guys later.